Action SA plans to challenge the Independent Electoral Commission's Multi-Party Democracy Fund. Now, according to the party, the Act limits the role of the CEO of the IEC to managing and administering the fund. For more on this, I'm joined by Lerato Ngobeni, who is the spokesperson for Action SA. Mr. Ngobeni, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. Perhaps let's start with the reasons why you are basically objecting to the multi-party fund and the role that the IEC is playing in regards to this.
Thank you very much, Sis Thami and Newsroom Africa, for having us. We appreciate this time. Our contention is a very simple one. During a meeting held on the 27th of May this year, the IEC pretty much came out confessing that they were actively soliciting funds for political parties that are represented in the legislature, the national legislature, as well as the provincial legislature. Now, as Action SA, we are not opposed to the Multi-Party Democracy Fund being in existence at all. It enables us as normal citizens, ordinary citizens of the country, private donors, etc., different facets of donors who can contribute to the fund so that our political system keeps on running in the multi-party way that we aspire to as a nation. However, as you rightfully said, that the IEC's sole responsibility with regards to how the Act affords it its powers is to say that they must administer the fund and they must manage the fund. That is not to say that they can actively approach donors for donors to be able to donate towards the fund. That is the one thing that we are contesting, and we welcome the IEC to be able to refute our claims. Fortunately, this was a virtual meeting which is recorded, and we have asked the IEC to make that recording available.
And let's backtrack a little bit here, Ms. Ngobeni, and talk about how you as Action SA found out about the IEC's solicitation of funds and the communication or correspondence that you have made to IEC.
Well, as a political party that is registered with the IEC, we do participate in the National Party Liaison Committee, which houses all political parties, and we're able to participate. And this declaration was made during that meeting, as I stated before, on the 27th of May this year.
And so you say you've made requests to the IEC to hand over the material or the minutes of that meeting, the actual recording. And what sort of response have you gotten from them while trying to engage with them?
The IEC is very evasive. They literally did not respond much to, they acknowledged our letter. They did not necessarily respond to the different points that we're raising. For them to say, number one, they must confirm. If they're not willing to actively confirm to us as a political party that is asking them, then they must make that recording available so that they can refute it through those minutes that are voice recorded as well. That's number one. Number two, any funding that is being solicited by the IEC that we understand has already been received by the IEC should be frozen and not dispersed by the IEC, because that was raised by them.
So do you have proof of these funds?
This is the third thing that we asked them, that if any donations have come through that have been raised by them, those should be made public, and then the donors also should be made public. Those are the three things that we asked in our letter to the IEC. They have not necessarily responded to any of that. In fact, they are just saying that our allegations are untrue. What we are saying is that if it's untrue, it's fine, but let them respond to us and be transparent to South Africa, so that we trust them in their integrity, and that we are a voice, we are a political party, and we have the right to ask if we are unsure, unclear about the processes that the IEC is undertaking with regards to this fund.
So just for clarity at this stage, Mr. Ngobeni, it is an allegation that Action SA is making against the IEC. You don't necessarily have the proof that this is indeed what they're doing.
Well, as I said, part of our representatives are part of the National Party Liaison Committee. They were present in that meeting. They reported back to the national office of Action SA to say that this is what is happening, and that the IEC has actually declared this with their own mouths. And so what we're asking is that the IEC give us the proof. Show us those minutes. Reveal those recordings that are part of the minutes. And if we are wrong, then we will accept that we are wrong. But we don't believe that we are, and that is why they're stalling on giving us this information.
And I have to ask you this very last question, Ms. Ngobeni. Your main bone of contention here is that should there have been funds that have been raised, these funds will go to parties that are represented in legislation. Now, Action SA is not one of those parties. If you were a beneficiary of these funds, would you still have a problem with what the IEC is doing, allegedly?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We, as a party and as representatives of our organization and also of South Africans who have given us the mandate to form a political party, we believe, number one, that the rule of law is important, and so we should all act in accordance. And so we are not interested necessarily in receiving those funds. Political parties, Thami, you and I, are taxpayers through the National Constituency Allowance. They receive funding, billions of rand through the government in Parliament, also in the provincial legislature. That's number one. That's how they're able to raise funding. Number two, they raise funding on their own. They solicit funding from private donors as well. It is just unheard of or shouldn't be allowed that the IEC also has to raise funding for the same political parties. We think that it's unjust and it shouldn't be allowed to happen. This is not because we don't receive funds. We are actively receiving donations from ordinary South Africans all of the time, every day. Every political party that is that wants to contest elections in our country so that our democracy can thrive even further should be able to do that. But for these political parties to be given unfair advantage repeatedly through multiple streams, we think that is unconstitutional, shouldn't be allowed to continue.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lerato Ngobeni. We'll leave it at that for this afternoon. That is the spokesperson for Action SA. We will endeavor to get a writer response from the IEC as well.